Step into the ruins of a medieval castle, an old timber-framed church, or a centuries-old Viking ship, and you'll notice something remarkable. Much of the wood is still solid. Beams that have faced relentless rain, snow, frost and soil moisture for hundreds of years remain remarkably intact. Now, contrast that with modern wood used outdoors, which often rots within a decade despite chemical sealants and pressure treatments. Medieval builders didn't have synthetic preservatives, industrial coatings, or chemical magic. Yet they consistently created timber that could survive centuries. The secret wasn't luck. It was knowledge, observation, and deliberate technique. Understanding these principles reveals why modern wood often fails, and how we can emulate these centuries-old methods for projects today. The longevity of medieval timber begins with careful selection. Builders prioritized dense heartwood, the inner part of the tree, over sapwood. Heartwood naturally contains resins and tannins that repel water and resist fungal attack. Species like oak, larch, chestnut and pine were selected for durability, and harvesting during winter or early spring ensured minimal sap content, reducing sugars that feed rot-causing fungi. Medieval carpenters didn't just rely on material, they manipulated its form. Beams and planks were often split along the grain rather than sawn, preserving the natural fibres that resist water penetration. Posts and edges were tapered, chamfered or rounded so rainwater would shed instead of pooling. This seemingly small adjustment reduced prolonged moisture contact, which is the single biggest contributor to decay. Modern builders can apply this principle easily. Rounded post tops, beveled edges, or even subtle slopes on beams and planks prevent water from lingering, dramatically extending timber life. Medieval builders rarely used freshly cut timber. Beams and planks were air-dried for months or years in ventilated covered storage. This slow seasoning allowed moisture to escape, evenly reducing internal stresses and preventing cracking that invites rot. Fungi and insects are far less likely to attack stable, dry timber than freshly cut, unstable wood. Today, air-drying timber before installation is a low-tech but highly effective strategy. Even untreated wood benefits immensely from slow moisture reduction, particularly when used outdoors or in damp environments. Patience in seasoning timber can pay decades in durability. Perhaps the most ingenious medieval trick was controlled surface heating. Timber was lightly charred over embers or exposed to low heat, hardening the outer layer, driving out residual moisture and breaking down sugars that fungi feed on. After heating, builders applied natural oils, resins or fats while the wood was still warm. Pine tar, fish oil or rendered animal fats penetrated deep into the fibres, creating a water-resistant and decay-resistant barrier without synthetic chemicals. Material preparation was only one part of the equation. Medieval engineers were meticulous about structure and placement. Posts were often elevated on stone or gravel to avoid soil contact. Roofs extended beyond walls, and floors were raised for ventilation underneath. Modern construction can adopt the same principles. Elevating posts, incorporating airflow under floors, and designing generous roof overhangs protect wood from water exposure. Even without chemical treatment, proper placement and ventilation dramatically increase longevity. These days, modern builders, they often rely entirely on chemical treatments or coatings and, unfortunately, neglect crucial steps like selection, seasoning, shaping and structural protection. You see, freshly cut or poorly dried timber is far more prone to rot, even if it's coated with the most advanced synthetic sealants. Without proper water-shedding design, posts and beams tend to stay wet for much longer, which, really invites decay. So, in other words, chemical treatments alone simply cannot replicate the centuries-long effectiveness that was achieved by medieval techniques. By returning to these principles, careful species selection, shaping for water runoff, slow seasoning, heat and natural oil treatment, and moisture-conscious design, we can produce timber that lasts far longer than what typical modern methods achieve. The longevity of medieval wood wasn't magic, it was method. By choosing dense heartwood-shaping timber, thoughtfully drying it, slowly treating it with heat and natural oils, and designing structures to stay dry, medieval engineers created wood that endured centuries. Modern builders, homesteaders and survivalists can achieve similar results by adopting these ancient practices. The lesson is clear. Wood longevity depends on understanding and working with the material, not merely applying chemical shortcuts. If you found this exploration of ancient engineering valuable, subscribe to Relic Logic and share this video with fellow history enthusiasts. The methods of the past aren't just stories. They're practical knowledge that can help us build stronger, longer-lasting structures today.